Hello, and welcome to Taxware Systems training today. We are thrilled to be doing a deep dive into the Wintax 1040 program for the 24 tax year. And so 2024 tax year. Thank you for being here. I know I've talked to multiple people after these trainings, and they always say that they learned something new, even those that have been with us for many, many years. Now, I just wanted to start with our most of you know that we have clients nationwide, but we are located in Southern California. And if you've watched the news, they probably have portrayed that that whole part of the state is on fire, and that's not true. But there is quite a few people that are struggling with fire danger today, and some wind storms that are pretty have been pretty strong. So our thoughts and prayers are with them, and this is being recorded. So if any of those clients are missing that because of going through some of those ordeals today, we will be able to get that to them. So if you're concerned, our headquarters are doing just fine. So thank you. I am going to point out that there is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Um, and so if you have questions that pertain to this training as they come up, you can put those in there. And one of our team members will be answering those questions. Or we might push them to the end to be answered live. Just kind of depends. So that is something that you might want to be aware of. And I think that's it. I think we're just excited to start the season. We have not heard, they have not posted, the IRS has not posted the start date yet. We expect to hear from them, soon, to let everybody know when that will start, and when the hub testing or the initial launches of their testing their system happens, and that we participate in that. So that kind of information will be forthcoming. We always put that information in your messages in your Wintax system, so you can look for that there. So anyways, we look forward to serving this year, and I'm going to turn the time over to Luis, who is going to take that deep dive into our Wintax 1040 system. Luis?
Thank you, Catherine. Let me go ahead and we'll get right into it. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you guys the program. Okay. All right, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Okay, so today we're going to be taking a very thorough look at the program, our Wintax 1040 program. We're going to go ahead and cover some of the settings that we have, some of the little less known items that we also offer within the program. And then once we're done, we're going to go ahead and do a basic tax return. So the first thing I want to go over is first, this is your starting screen. This is when you open the program, this is what you're going to see. These are our menu here. And as Catherine was saying, the messages will pop up on the left side. You can see them on this side here. They show in red. Red means you have not read the message. To read the message, you can double click it. It's going to bring up the detailed message, priority, everything we have here. Once you click OK, the message will turn from red to white. So letting you know, hey, you have read that message. Same thing for any news that we put in here are usually important news. We try to keep this as clean as possible. And if you read this and you don't need this anymore, you can click this little arrows here, which will hide that message bar in case you need full access to the buttons here. You can click it again to bring it back up. Okay. One of the things we're going to be taking a look at here, like I said, is defaults and settings. We're going to be going over some of these settings here in a little bit more detail. So the first, we're going to go down from the top down. We'll start with the Win user. The Win user usually, most of our clients won't need a second Win user file. This file here, this user contains all this setting information you have here, your paths and everything. So for example, let's say you have a dual setup where you have, your local computer, but you also have a network where you have other clients, and you have your local where it's just your private files. You can set it so that you can have by clicking here, you will create a new user and you can call it something like local. It will basically put everything back to default. And that way, when you want to switch between your local files and your network, you can go ahead and just switch between the users there. You're going to need to put the demo, your Taxware client ID. For this example, we have the demo there. But each Win user will need its ID. It can be the same ID, but the settings is what's going to change. Okay. Second thing we're going to look at is, again, going down the list, number 3, which is going to be that this is going to be your settings and data path. After 2020, we separated the programs and the data. So in case something happens to your programs where they get corrupted or something, your data is not affected because it's in a different path. So this is where your data is located. For most users, you're not going to need to change this. This is by default. Um, if you install the program, it automatically reads prior year and just sets it up to the prior year, whatever you had there. So we made it pretty simple. However, if you're on a network, this will most likely change. It's going to be something like T drive, and then whatever folder you have it in, and that's going to be where your data is at. Again, if you have a local, you can switch between those two, which will allow you to switch between your local and your network. Creating your data path. Here is where you can create different folders for your data path for the current year. For example, this is useful if you have a big office and you have multiple preparers and you want them all to be in their own folder so you can kind of track who did what. So you can make a new folder. For example, I can make a new folder, call this Luis, and then any tax returns I make on this computer that have that current year data path will go into the Luis folder. Then I can go back into whatever folder is the same for last year. So if you have someone, like Jose, Luis, Jake in your office, they can each have their own folder, have their tax returns separate. We usually recommend if you do that, and if you're planning to merge them at the end of the year for the next year's program, keep the numbers separated. Start Luis at 1,000, Jose at 2,000, and then Jake at 3,000, just so that it makes it easier for the next year if you merge all that data together. You don't have any clients that are overlapping with each other. Okay. The next thing is your depreciation program path. This is going to be for the program. This is not for the data. It needs to know where the program is at. If you use our software, you know that within the certain schedules, you can bring up depreciation, and this is where it looks for it. So by telling it it's here, it's going to load the program up. For most of our clients, again, you're not going to change this unless you install somewhere different, like your D drive or a G drive. But just remember that every single computer you install the program to needs to be installed locally. The data can be shared, but the programs have to be installed on each computer. You cannot run the programs off the network. It's going to give you issues. They will run, but you will run into issues if you do that. Okay, the next line we're going to go down is the PDF Dark Arc. PDF Dark Arc is our program that we use for archiving. If you have that, again, it's going to be the program path. So pretty simple, nothing too crazy. Just wherever your Dark Arc is located, you're going to put it in there. The one that does change is line number 8, though. Line number 8 is your partnership program data path. So this is not looking for the program path like the other ones. This is looking for where the data is located. In this case, it's going to be somewhere in here on whatever you have up here. You can see here it says Taxware settings and data, and then the name of the program, and then client data. So these are very important because sometimes you won't find your clients or you're missing is because either the path is incorrect or you have a different folder. So kind of an important thing to keep an eye on. Number 2 we're going to be looking at here is defaults and setups. I'm going to go ahead and leave these blank for now because I want to show you an error that we're going to get when we run into these issues. I think someone said they cannot see my screen. Is anyone having issues reading my screen? Catherine, can you see?
Yeah, I can see, and I've had a reference that people can see, so it must be
Okay.
just an individual situation.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, so the next thing, like I said, we're gonna leave these blank. But normally what you want to do is you want to select your default preparer that's going to be preparing this computer and your ERO. We're going to come back to this because I'm going to trigger an error and I'm going to show you how to resolve that error. It's a very common error that we get in the tax season, and it can be solved by just placing the default preparers here and there. So we'll come back to this. We're going to leave it blank for now. Building setup, I'm going to go into right now. Building setup, we use something called snapshot building. Snapshot building allows you basically to take a snapshot of your default, which is this screen here, and apply it to your clients. Now, if you have a client before you set up your building, that client is going to remain whatever was created when you created that client. For example, if I have a client with this numbers here, and then I update this later on, and I go back to the client, it's not going to have the updated information because it took a snapshot of the default when it was created. So you always want to set this up as soon as you start your tax season. You can change this by simply going into your 1040, selecting it, and let's say I want to charge 150. You type in 150, and there you go. If you want to select multiple things to edit, you can either hold Shift and click on the bottom one, and then just type in like $25. Okay, that $25 there, and it's going to update all of them. Okay, if you want to select individual ones, you can hold Control, click, and then click the next one, and all the ones you're going to update. And then you just type in $50 and it updates everything you selected. Okay, so this is your default, like I said. Whenever you create a new client, it's going to copy the numbers you have here, and any forms that you're using, it's going to add to their billing. Inside of the client, however, because it's a snapshot, you can edit the rates and it won't affect your default settings. So for example, if you want to charge that client 175 inside of the client, which I'll show you later, you'll be able to change the 150 to 175, and any other clients you make will still retain the 150. Okay. We give you the option to change the rates here, which is what I just did right now. Change filters and the zero rates. So if you want to start over, you can just click that zero rate and it's going to zero everything out. We also give you the option to do multiple profiles. For example, if you want to have a family and friend one, you can have family and friends. You can have one for walk-ins, appointments, as many profiles as you want, and have them differently set up. We offer the same option for all the states. You can click on the state, for example, here, and it's going to show you all the forms for California and Arkansas. So anything you want, the states are listed here. You can edit them here, and that will go ahead and show up on the client. Same thing for the billing information. Any notes you put in here will automatically get transferred over to a new client when you do it. So again, we encourage you guys to go through this and set this up. If you have already set it up in rates last year, we can go ahead and help you transfer those inside the master menu. You can give us a call and we'll transfer those over in case they don't automatically transfer over for you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump into the next one, which is the print setup. Print setup is the same way as billing. We also use snapshot for prints. So anything you make here will apply to a new created client. There's a couple options you can do. Print if required. So print if required will only print up in the return if you're using that form. If you're not using that form, it's not going to print up. You can switch it to print always, which will make it so that no matter what, even if you use it or not, it's always going to print that up. You can switch the number of copies by clicking the copies and just typing in a new number, and that will generate 2 bill pages in case you wanted to do that. If you don't want that page to be printed at all, for example, you don't want the bill to be printed because you're using a different billing thing, you can just go ahead and remove that and it will no longer print that no matter what, even if you use it. So if you have additional pages you want to add, such as engagement letters or any kind of PDFs, you can always click the additional PDFs to print, and you can click add PDFs, and then you can keep on adding those PDFs. It's kind of like our title and client letters. Just keep in mind that the PDFs you add through here won't have the client's name automatically inputted into them because it's a PDF that you created and it just adds it on to a print. We have here, these ones here are the ones that we offer with the program by default. Okay, these are our default title pages. You can select from here, default letters, slip sheets that you can use for extra things in there. And you can use the letter formatter to kind of change them around. We do have a video of that letter formatter in case you're interested. And you can always give us a call to help you with that formatting. We won't be going into over on that on this video because it is a little in-depth. So if you are interested, go ahead and look at that video. It's on our website, or you can give us a call and we can help you with any formatting. Another thing we have
Luis,
here. Yes.
Luis, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I
Okay.
think that this might be able to be possible. Can you zoom in just a little bit? It's
Okay.
what's projecting is pretty small, and so if it can stay still on the same screen and be happy, that would be great. That looks a lot better for us. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay. So going back onto this, we have the mass social security numbers and bank account. If you click yes here, it's going to mask the social security numbers and the bank account numbers. Keep in mind that if you do that, it will put a watermark on it. It will say client copy. And as long as you have that in there, it's going to keep showing that. The reason for that is the IRS does not like when tax preparers send in returns with mass social security numbers. So in order to prevent that, we add that watermark. Even if you do not have the client copy watermark check, by checking this box here, it's automatically going to add that watermark. Okay. If you don't want to mask them, but you also don't want them to send it in, you can just click this one here and it's going to place that client copy watermark on it. A lot of times you'll still see that, especially in the beginning of the tax season, you're going to see that it has that watermark. That just means that it hasn't been approved for paper filing. And once it's approved, we remove that watermark, even if you have these checked off. So the next thing is the protect PDF with SSN. That is very important if you're planning to send out your PDF to your client via email. Email is not a secure option to send out returns. I recommend something like, Taxcom or Adobe or anything that's not email. Email is one of the less secure things to send out a return. If you're insistent on sending it out, I do recommend putting that PDF on there, that social security password. What that's going to do is when they open the return, it's going to ask for the last four of their social. That way, their return is protected in case for some reason their email gets hijacked. So it's very important to have that in case you're sending it out via email. Okay, we're going to go ahead and see some of the settings down here. Auto create PDF when printing complete return. This is for, it's a preference for you if you want to have it. I recommend it. What this does is whenever you print the return, what it's going to do, it's going to create a PDF in your archive folder. So in case the client comes down the line a couple, maybe, at the end of the year or next year, and he's like, hey, I want you to give me a copy of my return. You don't have to go into the return. You can just go into the archive folder, which you can get to by clicking support, open PDF archive folder. And then you can go ahead and just reprint the return out. Okay. Another useful thing is set return status when you print the return. Again, it's kind of like the same as number 12. What this does is switches over to complete. Just keep in mind that if you do put it as complete, the file can still be edited. So if you want to prevent any edits from the file, you do complete and lock. This will make it so the file can no longer be edited once you print that complete return. You would have to go back into it and then switch it from complete and lock to complete. Okay, then you have your printers here, what printer you're going to be using. Again, we already covered this ad, so that is going to cover these print setup. Again, you do have the option to do multiple print setups. So by just switching the name here, you can change the active one here. Again, that's going to be in case, you want to do a state only and you don't want to do federal and state at the same time. You just want to separate them. You can do that there. Just like our billing, we have all our states that have their own forms on there, which you can select and remove. Okay. Preparation date. Again, we're going down the list. Preparation date is usually updated to whatever day you open the program. It's updated every time you open the program. If for some reason you need to go back and change the preparation date on a return, for example, let's say you didn't create that archive and they want the return, but they want it on the day they came in. When you print it out, it says, hey, it's prepared today, but they're trying to apply for a loan and it says it needs to be on the date they filed the return. You can go ahead and edit that here. And whenever you preview, it will change the date. Just keep in mind that whenever the program updates again, or you open the program, it's gonna automatically resort to the new date again. Okay, so we're gonna go down to the next one, which is 14. Automatically check for downloads and updates when you start Wintax. It is very recommended, especially during tax season, to when you leave your office, you close the program down. Close the program down and have this checkbox. We have some clients that for some reason remove that check. What happens if you remove that check is the next time you open the program, it's not going to check for an update. And again, during tax season, things are changing. We're updating the program quite a bit. And if you don't have that checkbox, it's not going to prompt you to, hey, there's a new version. And if you fall behind, there could be some changes that could affect your return. So we always recommend to never uncheck that. During tax season, like I said, close the program down. Maybe you go to lunch, close the program down. When you go to lunch, come back, open the program. The program checks for updates. If there's an update, you download it and you're good to go. Okay, and the next one is input method. Input method, when you first open the program, if this is not selected, it's going to ask you to choose an input method. We're going to take a look into them real quick when we go into the tax return, but there's two options. There's line input and forms and schedules. This is going to set as a default. So the next time you go from basic information to your next one, it's going to tell you, hey, where you're going to go. Either you're going to go into the 1040 or you're going to go into forms and schedules. Like I said, I'm going to leave it blank so you can see that prompt when we go into the return. If you want to switch it, you can always come to defaults and settings and go to this line and change that option. Okay, so we have a couple of things here that are selected by default. Choose 1040 SR if allowed. Okay, default language preference to Spanish. There's an option for you to change it inside of basic information. I will be showing you that when we go into that as well. Enter zip code before stating zip. This is when you press tab. You go down the line, and then instead of going into the town, it's going to go into the zip code, because the program, when you enter the zip code, it should populate the town and the state. So that's what that's useful for. Okay, so we're going to go here, input SDI and W2s, just some basic settings. I'm going to see which one stands out that we will talk about here. So we're going to scroll down here. Preview returns after archive. So on this one here, when you talk to tech support and we're going to preview an acknowledgement or anything, we usually check, there's a settings that we're going to go and check that off. But this one here is, so whenever you go into the return and you archive it, it's going to go ahead and bring it up for you to see what you exactly archived. Okay, so we have some text and stuff here, and we also have our Taxcom settings. If you're using Taxcom, like I said, to send documents and receive signatures, this is where you're going to enter your API. The API is basically a way for the program and the website to communicate with each other. What it's going to do is going to send your finished return up to Taxcom, and then for the client to sign. And if they send you any kind of documents, W2s, whatever, it'll pull that from Taxcom into Taxware. So that's what that's for. Okay, so use electronic signature without a signature pad. This is in case you don't have a topaz. If you don't have a topaz, you can use a touchscreen or your mouse, and the client can sign on the screen. So if you have that option and you don't have the topaz, you can check that to allow the program to basically use that. E-file transmission method. 99.9% of us are using A2A. There's no need to change that. In case you do need to do IFA, you can change it here. Keep in mind with IFA that it is a communication between you and the IRS. There's very little things that we can check on that side. But like I said, most of us are using A2A, which is when we go ahead and send them to the IRS, and we can go ahead and help with those rejects that come in. IFA usually requires you to call the IRS for any help on that one. Okay, combine acts to print on multiple page per page. So this is going to do it whenever you, if this is not checked, whenever you receive an acknowledgement, let's say you send out 10 returns and you get back 10 acts, it's going to do a single page for every act. It's going to be a tiny page with just one line on it saying the status, if it's been accepted or it's been rejected. This option allows you to combine all those into one. Normally for the acknowledgements, those are for your records. So you don't want to have a bunch of pages unless you're getting them to the clients. But for your records, one page with all your acknowledgements is usually a good thing. You save on ink, you save on paper. That's that option there. This is what I was talking to you about earlier. When tech support connects to your computer, we will usually check this box off. What this box does is whenever you go into the acknowledgements and you basically click to print, instead of printing it, it's going to show it on your screen. It's going to give us a PDF so that we can read it, because we don't want to go into your computer, click the print button, and then it prints out to your printer. We can't read it. So we usually check this off. In case you don't want to print out the acknowledgement for whatever reason, this is what you're going to check. And at this point, it's going to just create an acknowledgement, and you can basically save it to PDF. There is a button for auto saving, so that's really not necessarily that option, which is 48, which is whenever you get an acknowledgement, it saves it to PDF. Okay, so auto generate 8879 PIN numbers, pretty self-explanatory. It generates the PIN numbers for the 8879. Okay, same thing for the PIN signature date. If you want to use a specific PIN for all your 8879s, this is where you're going to set it up. And every time you do an 8879, it's going to use that specific PIN. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get out of the defaults and settings. We're going to go back into prepare an ERL setup. So this is a second step whenever you set up your computer. And if you're recalling from last year, you have your last year programs, everything should have been brought over. If it's not brought over, don't re-enter, just give us a call. We'll help you bring it over. You don't, especially if you have a lot of repairs. It's really simple for us to transfer stuff over. So here you're going to go ahead and you're going to see what preparers you have. You can add a preparer. You can edit the preparer by double clicking on them. And then you can change any of the information here. Update tax preparers. A lot of the clients, when they add someone, they want to click this button. This button is intended more for support. What this does is if you, let's say, for example, you go and create 15 returns If you have 15 returns and you don't have a preparer set up, if you click this button here, it's going to update your 15 returns with this information. So the problem with that is that if you have multiple and then you click update tax preparer, it's going to replace everyone you have in there with the preparer you just updated. So don't worry about clicking that. Like I said, it's more for support. Fill out this information here, and then I'll show you how to change it in the return itself. Okay, we're going to go into the ERO. The ERO is the information here is automatically set up on Taxware side. When you sign up with us, you give us your EFIN, and we put the information in here. So this information is usually set up by Taxware. You can update it by clicking your copy information for preparer. Like I said, most of the time when you enter the new EFIN, this gets populated. So go ahead and go back. That's going to be normal because it's a demo account. That EFIN's not real. So into the next thing we're going to look at is miscellaneous features. And I'm going to talk a little bit about these first lines here. Again, these first lines are very important, specifically the backups. The backups, I cannot stress enough every time I do a presentation on how important backups are. It's the difference you're going to spend if your computer dies for some reason or your hard drive fails. And if you have a backup, a proper backup, you can be up within 5 minutes and you're good to go. All your years are back up and you just continue as nothing happened. If you do not have a backup, unfortunately, we don't store your data. We are software based, we're not cloud based. The backup is the taxpayer's responsibility. And it's very important to have, like I said, because if you don't have that backup, your clients are basically gone if your hard drive crashes or whatever happens. So it is very important to set up this backup, and it has to be a proper backup because you don't want to set up the backup on your C drive. What happens if your hard drive dies? Your backup goes with it. You want to have your backup storage path somewhere different, such as a Google Drive, an external drive, a USB, somewhere that's not on the computer itself. Because even though you have a second hard drive, let's say you have a D drive on your computer, if your main computer dies, you still have that secondary computer. But if something happens to your computer, then both of those drives are gone. So it's always important to save it externally, USB, cloud, whatever you prefer, just not on the computer. If you have multiple computers, save it on different computers. That way you can save yourself a lot of trouble when, a lot of headaches, specifically when something happens. If it's there, all we do is unzip that and then you're good to go. Just like that, all your information is back up and running. Okay, the next thing we have is the view backup folder. So clicking that opens up your backup folder. Run backup now. This is going to force the program to run a backup when you click this button. Anything you have in your 2020 and all the way to 2024 will be backed up. Keep in mind that this will only back up from 2020 to 2024, the latest years. It will not back up your older data because we didn't have this feature back then. So if you need help backing those up, give us a call and we'll back those up for you. The backup scheduler. So we're going to click on that and it's going to add a couple of things. We're going to click twice. So we're going to add 2 schedules here. You can see the mode is set to daily. During tax season, I recommend you do daily backups. The way the backups work is it's not going to replace the last backup you made. It'll make a backup for, let's say, today the 8th, and then tomorrow make a backup for the 9th, and then the 10th. The reason for that, let's say, is you made a change on the 9th, and then you backed up on the 10th. If it were to replace it, there's no way to go back up to whatever you have on the 9th because the 10th replaced it. So by doing this, it allows you to keep different days as backup, but you can go back to a specific date. And that way you can basically recover that data. So when that happens, you're basically good to go on the backup. So you can set up multiple backups here, such as weekly. I do weekly and I include the PDFs. The reason why I do include PDFs on weekly is because that way, when you do a daily backup with PDFs, the size can get pretty big because the PDFs are pretty big. Doing it weekly, it still saves your data on daily, and then on whatever week you have it, like on Saturday, it will go ahead and back up everything, including your PDFs. And the PDFs do get a little bit big in size, so that's why I recommend either weekly or you can switch this to monthly PDFs. Like I said, during tax season, though, I recommend you have this kind of setup here because that way you're pretty much covered. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and skip this here a little bit. We're going to go into program access. So program access setting password. So this allows you to set a password for unlocking of these settings here. So, example, if you have multiple repairers in your office and you don't want them to delete clients, mass social security, change return, or any of these options, you'll put the password in here. By clicking here, it's going to ask for the password. You type it in, and then it's going to allow you to unlock the settings. And then in order for them to change anything here, they will need to type in this password. If they work in a transmit or return, if you have this checked, they're going to need this password here that you put in there. Okay. There's another option that we have here is the program login password. So this is so when you check this off, it's gonna the next time you open the program, it's gonna ask you to create a username and a password. And every time you want to open up that program, it's gonna require that username and password. Okay. So again, this is the PDF password protection that we're talking about. That's in the settings, the print settings. You can also do it here. Use the last 4 digits to protect your PDF, or you can enter a generic password for all your PDFs. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go out of the miscellaneous settings for now. And then we're going to look at your e-file status screen. So the e-file status screen is color coded. So anything in green here is basically been accepted. These are the returns that you sent out and have come back as accepted. If it's red, it's a reject. And we can go into and see why it was rejected. Unfortunately, like I said, I cannot see those because this is demo data, so that's not there. And then we're going to go into batch e-filing. Batch e-filing, some of our clients like to do batch e-filing. Basically what this does is you go ahead and prepare the return, and then you don't send it off, you leave it alone. And then when you come in here, you can go ahead and go to the transmit return, and then your list will be here, the ones that are ready to go. You switch it over, and then you can transmit all at once. Personally, I prefer sending one by one, but that option is there in case you want to do batch e-filing. The bank product settings here is for bank enrollment or your current settings. If you're doing bank products, just remember that the registration for the bank product is done the prior year for the current year you're working on. So for 2024, the registration is done on the program for 23, and then you do that here. Okay, so when the tax season is coming to an end, you want to do those 4868s automatic extensions. Number 7 is where you go. It's going to go ahead and generate a list of your clients from last year that have not come in this year, and then it'll go ahead and send out those 4868s for them. If you need help with that, you can give us a call. We'll help you out with those. This is the IFA, like I was saying. This is transmitter info. We won't be able to provide any other information for here. This is between the IRS and you if you're using IFA. Like I said, 99.9% of us are on 828, so you don't really have to fill this out there. Okay, so now we're going to go into the top 3 screens. The top 3 screens is new client, recall, and recall prior. So we'll go into new client first. Pretty straightforward. You click new client, it brings up a client ID where you can go ahead and enter the ID you want to assign your client. For example, like I was saying earlier, if you have multiple repairs, you want to start them off a different ID, so you make sure you don't overwrite. This is where you put your ID. The way we manage ID is progressive ID. So what happens is when you start at 1,000 and you make the next client, instead of being number 1 because you don't have a number 1, it's going to be 1,001, and then 1,002, and so on and so on. If someone starts at 2,000, it'll go 2,000, 2001, even if the other ones don't exist. So it is something that we want to keep kind of note on for that. So for this one, we're just going to go ahead and start at number 1, and then we're going to click OK. Just 1 minute. Just 1. Here. Okay. So for here, we're going to go ahead and click on single. We're going to go ahead and double click it. And then we're going to fill out the information here. So we're going to go tester, test. We're going to give them social security. 1, 2, 3, 0, 0, 3, 4. Okay. Date of birth. Okay. You can see it auto populates the H there. Okay. So you use a tester. 1, 2, 3. Demo street. Okay. So you saw here, if I'm pressing tab, you can see it goes to the next option. When I'm on address, if I press tab, because of that option we have, it's going to go to zip code instead of city. So I'm just going to go to zip code, and you can see it auto populates everything for you. That's a cool little feature. Go ahead and click OK. We'll fill out any information that you have for the client here. For now, we're just going to go ahead and leave this empty though. Okay. All right. So the next option is going to say, hey, do you want to enter dependents? For this tester, we're not going to enter any dependents. We are going to go into a return right now. That does have that. So I'm going to cover some of the things that I told you earlier. You can see here preparation date shows today's date, which is what was on that defaults and settings. You can change it here as well if you like. So for example, if I wanted to make this 4, whenever I preview it, it's going to show that it was done on the 4th. Okay, so now I'm going to go into, by clicking OK, you can see here, this is what I was talking to you about earlier, or the selection. It's going to tell me to select a default because I left it blank. So in this case, I'm going to go to 1040 line input, and then we have our visual representation of the 1040. So before we go into doing the actual return, though, I want to go ahead and cover some of the things that we kind of see normally on our side, and we get a lot of calls of. So right now, if I go to recall, we just looked at the new client screen. So now we can see that we worked on tester test here, and we have its information and everything. So this is basically our, I prefer using this screen over any of the other screens, even new client or recall prior. So recall prior will show you your last year clients that have not come in yet. I prefer recall client because in this screen, you have access to everything. You have access to new client on the left by clicking here. And you can see since I made it number 1, number 2 is next. Okay. You have access to your prior by clicking prior here, and it shows your prior clients. Sometimes we have clients call in that they made tester and they call in because they clicked this and they cannot see tester anymore because he is here, but because I had him last year. But for example, if his name was Jose, they would not see Jose here because he's not here. The reason for that is because we're on the prior. This is only going to show prior clients. It's not going to show any clients that you've worked on so far. You're going to click current for that. And this one will not show any of your prior clients. So if you want to see both of them, you can click on all. You can see here that the prior year are kind of grayed out, while the one that we worked on this year is more lit up. It's active. Okay. Another thing we get called about is that they say all my clients are gone. Sometimes you'll have something like this where you have a filter. If the filter is selected, then it's only going to show your rejected clients. If you don't have any rejects, you're not going to see any clients, no matter if you click current, prior, they're all going to be gone because it's on reject. Same thing for awaiting acknowledgements. So you want to make sure this is set to all. Okay. If you have different preparers, this is where they're going to go. So again, filters are kind of important to keep an eye on. If you have a filter set up, it's only going to filter out by the ones that are there. Okay. We have our search fields here. You can search by client ID, full name, tax, home phone, and date started. Okay. The way this fields get populated is by what you have on the client grid. So the client grid is what you're seeing here. You can edit this to your liking by clicking the edit client grid. So these are the available columns you can have in there. So for example, if you want to have, let's say I don't want to show the balance due, I can remove the balance due. I don't want to know what prior year was. I don't even want to know their home phone number. Okay. And I actually want to mask the social securities in the client grid like that. And that will edit the client grid so it only shows the information I want to see. Everything that I unchecked is now gone. In case you want to bring that back up, you can go back in here. You can click restore defaults. It restores. Let's say I want to put more stuff in here. Let's say I want to put taxpayer's email, and I want to put what else can we add? Spouse cell phone number and the preparer. Then I can go ahead and click save, and you're going to see this expanded a lot more, and it's now showing exactly what I wanted, the preparers and everything there. You can also edit the order. So I'm going to go back in here again. I'm going to restore the default. And let's say I don't want their client ID listed, but I do want them to be listed by Social Security first. And then I want to have their status. Where's the status there? That's the second thing there. So now if I do this, client ID is gone, taxpayer social, and then the status is listed next. So you can customize this to your liking. Very useful to have, in case you don't want to see some of the stuff here. Another thing we have is, you can see here pressing F2 after highlighting a cell is the expanded window. The expanded window shows us a little bit more information on their bill. It also shows us their e-file status. So when they're rejected, we can go here and see the acknowledgement to see why it was rejected. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into prior, and I'm going to recall a client from last year. So we're going to go ahead and choose Milton Lester here. So here we can see last year he was 22. And this year, since the next number on my list is number 2, it's going to show number 2 on my list. However, if you want to keep the same numbers as last year, there is an option in here. Let's see, right there. You just prior your client when recalling. So if I have that checked, whenever I go in and I recall him, he's going to be put as 22. This is useful in case you want to keep your clients with the same ID when they're moving forward every year. You can use that. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and click OK. It's going to ask me about their dependents since he did have dependents, and all the information from last year is brought over. Okay, so here we can see all that information. You can see here, tax preparer assigned and ERO. Remember, I left those blank in default. That is because whenever you go into and you forget to put those settings in there, you're going to see these errors here, the ERO and EFIN PIN. So if you see this here saying originator EFIN number there, that just means that we forgot to put that. Normally, when we go onto your computer and we get one of these validations, we look for keywords. In this case, this is our major keyword there. List of possible elements means something is missing. Then we just look at the quotes. It's saying it's an EFIN missing. We know that. This is also saying that it's missing. These are all saying paid repair was not entered. So by doing that, we just go into basic. We select the ones that we have. Okay. And then we go back into summary. And you can see now there's no more errors. It's still giving us that error, but now it's telling us, hey, it's the 8879. So this is basically just letting us know, hey, you have not previewed that 8879 yet. Once you preview it, then you should be good to go. So if we go into e-file, we preview that 8879. Okay, and then we go back to the program. You can see now the check has turned green. There are no more errors. Okay, so basically very important to have that set up in the beginning, like I said. So now we can go back. You can see if I were to recall, all right, let's go back to the one that I made earlier. So recall clients, current, and then we go to tester. You can see again, his information is not set down there. If I were to go into defaults and settings, again, because we use snapshot for all our settings, it doesn't affect anything that was made prior. So you saw that I did that there. However, his information is still 00 because he was made before I made any of the changes. However, if I were to make a new one now, get out of this one. We're going to go out. We're going to make a new client here. Okay, single test. Just leave that so it creates a blank one. Okay. You can see the information is not automatically populated. We don't have to worry about that anymore. So it's very important to set those up in the beginning. So you go back in. And to delete a client, you just click on them and you press delete on your keyboard. And then you just click yes. And your client's gone. So we're going to go with Milton Lester here. Okay. We're going to go ahead and develop his return a little bit now. So we have all this information. We have his dependents from last year. Everything's still the same. Okay. We have all that information there. We work like you would work on a 1040. You work on a 1040 from the top down. So it's the same way in our program. The program works top down. The first thing on the 1040 you see is all that basic information. So this is the first part you're going to see. It just puts it into a more visual method. The next thing we're going to do, same thing for navigation. We're going to work our way from up, down. These two can count as one because they're just different methods. So it's technically 3 steps. The first step, the second step, and then you're done. So we're going to go to the next step, which if you click OK, it's going to take you to the 1040, which is what we're clicking on right now. So now this is, like I said, a visual representation of the 1040. Basic information has all been filled out because that's the first step we did. You have your dependents. So the next step on the 1040 is, you work your way down. You enter your W-2s. So the program, if you worked on them last year, it's going to say, hey, last year you had this W-2. This is the information for it. And then you just go ahead and, yeah, he's still working at ABC Construction. Bring it up. Brings up all his information. You're just going to enter the new information for this year. So by pressing tab, it's going to auto pre-fill this based off the input you put in there. This is called the wizard mode. So you can see wizard mode is currently on. Everything that's lit up in blue will auto fill up, okay, in wizard mode. So if you saw that when I press tab, it entered the withheld. The only thing that does not enter is the federal income withhold because sometimes they opt to take out more or they go exempt and they don't take anything out. So there's no way for the program to calculate how much it's been withholding. So we're just going to type in here, let's say $3,000 there. Okay, so we're gonna put that in there. If they have, something like DD, and then you have 25, whatever you have in there, we're just gonna remove those. We're not gonna use it for this one. Same thing, state ID, their income withholdings. Just put a number there for now. Okay, we're gonna click OK. So that puts in our information. Again, if he had more, you can click the recall prior. It will let you select the other one again in case they have other ones. Okay, if they have a new one, you can always click add. And again, you can see here it's in wizard mode. Here it says F5 for employee lookup. If you press F5, it's going to give you anything you've entered so far for any of your returns. So for example, if you have another person that works in ABC construction, it's going to save you some time because you can just select that from there and all the information from it is going to happen. So in this case, we're going to use demo company. You can see it puts all that information in there. If you want to turn off wizard mode, you can click that button there. Keep in mind, if you turn it off though, when you press tab, nothing is going to fill up anymore. You have to do everything manually. Wizard mode, you do that, you press tab, it populates those two, press tab again, populates the next, populates that, and then you can add the final one there. Okay, so once you're done with the input, we finished the W-2s, everything is done. We're going to click OK again. The program will take us back over to the main screen where it will calculate their income, their deductions, and everything they have there. Their taxable income will all be listed there, and their balance due will be listed there as well. You can see here, it just takes it down the line. If they have other income, medical waivers, you'll put it into this part here. The reason why you see it goes from 1 to 41 is because a couple of years ago, the IRS changed the front 1040 to include this year. And we use these little numbers in the front, you can see here. So if I were to type down here, if I were to type in 01, it would take me to the wages because that's assigned to it. So it's hard for us to just put 01, 02, 03 because a lot of people know 02 is tax exempt interest. So if they type in 02, they have to go there and not here. The reason for that comes down to our secondary mode of input, which is our forms and schedules. Like I said, when you're in your basic information, you have line input or forms and schedules. Forms and schedules is basically a list of all the forms and schedules that we support. They're all listed here by number. So you can type in 01 to go into additional income and adjustments to your schedule 1, and it takes you into the schedule 1. Okay, so that's the reason why the numbers are in front and why you see the sudden jump in here, because a lot of our clients use a mixture of both, or some only use forms and schedule because it's easier for them. They have that muscle memory and they know exactly where they want to go. For example, if I wanted to remove one, I would go 88 and I could go ahead and clear any forms or schedules that I had in there. So that is a option for you to use if you like to use that. Personally, myself, I use a bit of mixture of both. I go in here and then move over to forms and schedules for certain things that make it easy for me. So it's really up to you how you plan to use it. Some people just are okay with using just the 1040, and they will only use the 1040 visual line input because it's what they're used to. And it's perfectly fine. There's no right or wrong way. It's just a way to make things easier for you. If you don't want to see all this information here, you can click hide basic information, and it's only going to show you the stuff that you need to work on this part here. If you are looking for a specific form or you cannot find it, we have form search here. For example, if I was going to look for the K1, you can see if I type in K, it starts to filter out everything that does not have a K in it. So if I type in K dash, now you can see I only see my schedule K1. Double clicking on it takes me to my schedule K1s. Okay. Anything that I've entered or that I'm using, it's going to go into the blue side here, forms schedules used. So if I go into, for example, a schedule D, let's go ahead and to here. Okay. You can see it's showing it up here, even though I didn't put anything in there. There's nothing on my schedule D, but it's showing it up here because I've entered it. I've used it basically. So again, 88 forms and schedules. Remember, that's for clearing. It's also down here because it's one of the ones that we use the most. But if you have that muscle memory, type in 88, you can select it, delete it from your keyboard, and now it's no longer here. Okay. Down here, you're going to see the forms that this client used in the prior year. So in the prior year, I have the EIC and the 4868 because he did an extension. Okay. You should be able to see if you used a prior year, if you're recalling from a prior year in basic information. We've added a special thing at the bottom now that says it's been recalled from a prior year. So for some reason, if you are looking at a client and the client, hey, I know he had a Schedule C last year, but I'm not seeing the Schedule C this year, it could be because you created the client in 24 and not recall them as a prior year. So this right here is the link. This one will let us know that, hey, you did call them from last year, and we can go ahead and troubleshoot that way. But in order for stuff to come from last year, you have to reuse the recall prior. You cannot create a new one, even if you have them last year, because if you create a new one, there's no link between the two returns. So it won't pull any of that information over. So it's always really, really useful to use the recall prior. Okay, so we're going to go back into here again. So we're just going to go ahead and hide it. I like to see this for some reason. I don't know. It's just a preference for me. Like I said, based on that input there, it's going to go ahead and do all the calculations based on the current tax year. It's going to add your standard deduction. It's going to subtract everything, and it's going to give you your total taxes at the end. It give you your credits, total number of payments, and then because his total tax is 11,867, he only made $8,000 in payments. He has his balance due. Okay, so it's a balance due of 3,800, but we also see on this screen here, we have something that's screaming red at us. It's saying, hey, you have not done your due diligence yet. So let's go ahead and click on that. And here's our due diligence. So this is where you're gonna ask the client these questions. The client's gonna answer these questions, and you're gonna go ahead and fill this out based on them. If the client's there, you wanted to recall prior. Again, it's the tax preparer's responsibility to check and ask accurate questions. So, but clicking this button here recalls whatever they had last year. Okay, same thing for this one. We should see here, it's kind of angry at us. We do the same thing, recall from last year. Okay, so now everything is perfect. There's no more red. So now we can see because of that, his balance due went down because we completed the EIC. So now he's getting extra credits for finishing that off. Okay, so now his balance is 1,367. So let's say that we are done with this side here. Let's give him a little break. We're not going to make him, let's change it so that he gets back a refund so we can show you the big screen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just go into here. We're going to say he actually paid 7,000 in taxes. Okay. And now he's getting a refund. So now we can go ahead and look at that direct deposit screen. So again, it shows you your federal tax refund here. You can see 2633. The next step in here will be to do the state. Keep in mind, it's the beginning of the season. The states are still being approved, so we wouldn't be able to show that on this tutorial here. But you would go into the state and then do the state, answer the state questions, and it will show state up there. For now, we're going to go ahead and go into direct deposit. And this is basically where it's going to go. You have the option of splitting into three different bank accounts if you like. Same thing here. You can see F5 lookup. If you press F5, it's going to show you any bank that you use for any of your clients. Think of it as a database that you have. So I can click on the demo bank. It's going to put the routing number. All I need is the client's number now there. And that's it. If you had something last year, you can click recall prior, and it'll just bring out the stuff from prior year. Okay, so you can go ahead, like I said, you can split this up any way you want, or if you want them to, receive $8,000 by check, you can do that. And then you can see it's going to deposit that much into their account there. If I wanted to do a second account, $500 to that second account, and it's just going to keep subtracting until, everything basically from that there and distributed into those accounts. You can see it here as well. Okay, so that covers that screen there. We're going to go into prior year comparison. So we're going to look at this. This is going to look at the information from last year and this year, and it's going to tell you what's changed. So you can see here all our incomes from 2023 are listed and 2024 are listed, and it tells us the difference between last year and this year. Again, if you have TaxCom, it does something similar, very visually appealing so that the client can see on there. So this is just more for you to see what the change is. Again, you can go ahead and print that page out, and it will go ahead and get that page to them. So let's look at that here. So here, this client was done before any of that. So we're going to go ahead and click Restore Defaults. I think I zeroed it out. Let me go back into that real quick because that gives me another chance to show that as well. So let me go ahead and show you billing setup. So we're going to go ahead and do 1040. We're going to do 150, like I said. Now remember that it uses snapshot. So what happens when the client was created, it already had the zero. They didn't have that 150. So in case you forgot what client you were looking at before, you can always look in the top. It says client 22. I can go back into number 22, go into a summary, go into billing information. You can still see it shows zero again, because when we created this client here, the snapshot showed zero. So it's going to show zero here. We can restore it, and then it's going to update it to the 150, because now when you click restore, it's going to be showing whatever was done on the current billing now, because that's the snapshot it's taken when you do this. You can go ahead and change this here, 250. And even though we changed it there, if we were to go out and go back into defaults and settings under billing, this is still going to remain at 150. So it's not going to affect any of your other returns by changing it there. That's one of the cool things about it. So we're going to go back in here, billing information. Again, you can put all this information here. You can say you want a discount, you want to give them 25% off. And then it's going to go ahead to the calculations balance to 187 because of that. You can charge them for additional W-2s. For example, I do 250 for the 1040 and I want to charge 25 for each W-2 he gives me. And then it's going to go ahead and do the math for you based off 2 W-2s. And that's what you get. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go out of there. We're going to go ahead and look at the next one, detailed summary. So again, this is just a way to break down the return for your client, major categories, income and everything. In case that you want to have a second screen where you can go ahead and display this for them, you can go ahead and display this for them on a different screen. They can see that. Okay, so let me go ahead and go to the next one, intuitive diagnostic. Okay, so this one here is an option that the program looks through your return and kind of gives you possibilities of, hey, maybe if you do this, they might, because right now it says I'm filing them as single. And as you've claimed single with a dependent, do you qualify as a household? So it's asking you a couple questions here to try to give your client a better refund, better tax for them. So here, I'm going to go ahead and switch them over to head of household. And now his refund's way better. So because of that diagnostic, I was able to see, hey, maybe I can go ahead and check that out. And that allowed me to see that, hey, yeah, if I do head of household, they'll get more money. Calculation log, that's something that was introduced at the end of 2023. It is something very useful. It kind of breaks down errors for you. If you look at it, for example, if we're looking at the return here, we go to 1040, and we're looking at him, he always got 2 kids, but hey, where's his EIC? He's not getting EIC. And this will save you some time by going in there and you look, okay, there's something here. Click on it and it says EIC is disallowed due to the AGI over the limit. So now because of that information, that's why he's not getting the EIC. Sometimes you'll see us text go in here immediately when we get the call to see what something's going on. Normally this catches anything like that. And this is the reason why they're not getting that EIC is because they're over. Okay, so here's the print file settings like I was talking to you earlier. If you have multiple ones here, this is where you'll change it. It's easy access because unlike billing, the print setup is used a lot more where people just want to print out states. They don't print federal or they do federal and no state. This gives you that option to switch between your profiles really quick. Okay, so another thing we have is the notes. So the notes are specific to this return only. So if I click here and I hit F4, I can type in test note, okay, and then close it, and it's going to show up here. So any specific note saying, hey, client still has a pending balance, client missing documents or whatever, you can go ahead and type it in here. Anyone that enters the return will be able to see the notes on that return. Like I said, they're specific to that return itself. So it's something you want to go ahead and make sure we have in there. Create presentation, that is for Taxcom. Again, that takes the return when it's done. It uploads it to Taxcom for them to sign, and it creates a nice little presentation for them to go ahead and take a look at. We have our preview return, which if we click, we'll go ahead and generate a preview. I don't think it's going to show it because I'm showing the program, so it won't show that return. But they will just give you the actual return before you print it. So in case you don't want to print it, you just want to save it, you can do that, or you can go ahead and print the return. preview return and print return, basically the same thing, like I said, but this one will make it so you can see it on your screen. It doesn't print. This one prints it. You don't see it on your screen. Form print and archive return. Okay, so archive return will archive the return, like I said, into your PDF archive folder. Form print is specific in case you want to see certain forms only. So if you only want to see the 1040 and you want to see maybe, let's take a look. Maybe he's got a Schedule C. You want to see the Schedule C? You'll go ahead and click there. You'll go ahead and preview it. Again, I wish I could show it. It's not going to show because it's locked into the program. But basically, we'll go ahead and preview the 1040 and the Schedule C. Okay. In case you wanted to see a worksheet, you can go ahead and click here. These are our current worksheets we support that we can preview. And you can go ahead and select that there and then go back out and then preview. And it's going to do these two and the worksheet. Same thing for the states. When you have states, they'll go in there. Okay, check all required. We'll select everything you have that you're using right now. So every form that I've gone in and I've accessed, it's going to be checked, and then I can just print it out. This will be a smaller print than as if it was a print return because this is not including the title page, the billing page, or any of that specific thing. However, if you want to do where you don't want to include those things, I recommend doing a print setting. That way you don't have to go into form print and do basically check by check. If you do a print setting, it's always going to remember that. Okay, so we're going to go back into the return a little bit. I'm going to go back a little bit in here. And then we're going to go into, okay, so we're going to go into Schedule C. And this is, like I said, I like using both because while you can go here and look for the Schedule C here, it's a lot easier for me just to go to Forms and Schedules and just Schedule C. It's super easy because it's organized by schedules, and it's like I said, it's a mixture of both. If you have the muscle memory, that's great. You can just type the number in, and it'll take you straight to Schedule C. But when you're learning and you're starting the program, I recommend the visual, and then once you get comfortable with the visual, move on over to Forms and Schedules, and then use a mixture of both. It makes it super simple. So here we're just going to create a regular Schedule C. It's going to say, hey, do you want to carry the address from the basic information? We're going to click yes. Okay, it's going to bring everything over here. It's going to give us our QBI in case you know we have a QBI, our income here for sales. So we're going to go ahead and we're not going to enter any income in here because I'm going to show how the income comes in from a 1099. So we're going to go into, you can see here, once we went into Schedule C, we now have due diligence again that's missing because of the Schedule C. So we click on it, it's going to say Schedule C. We'll come back to that though. We're going to go back into here and we're going to enter a 1099. So we're going to enter a 1099 NEC here. And then I'm just going to go F5, select one of the ones there. And you can see here, it says Schedule C amount. So for Schedule C, let's say he got $60,000 for work that he did. Okay. So pretty simple, nothing there. I mean, if you have tax withheld, you put it into there. Okay. State income, same amount. And when the state's released, like I said, that's going to flow automatically to the state. State is not released right now, so it's not going to flow, but the Schedule C will flow. And that's something I want to show. So now it's going to, when I do here, it's going to say, choose a Schedule C to carry to. You can see that we have the first one that we've already created, or you can create a new one if no Schedule C is made. For this one, we're going to use the first one that we created. So we're going to say yes. And then once that's done, you'll see it there. And now we can go into our Schedule C by double clicking on the blue there. Okay. And you can see that the money has come in from automatically in here. So now we see that we have the $60,000. And then you want to put your business here. He's a pool cleaner. Okay. And you want to do whatever business code is for the pool cleaner. If you're not sure, you can always click here and kind of look for whatever he is doing. So we're just going to go here and just trade contract there. Okay. So now that we have that done, you can call, his business name. He's just registered as his name. So that's what we're going to put. Now we get to the expenses. You can also see down here, we have the totals. So right now on his actual return, this is going to show the amount owed on the full return right now. Okay, so right now, if we were to go out of that, we're going to see he owes the $15,177 because of that Schedule C. Those $60,000 that we have, those are not, he paid no taxes on them. So he didn't have anything withhold. So that's income that came without tax. So the IRS wants the tax of those $60,000. However, we can offset that by putting in any expenses he's got. So for example, let's say, he had to release equipment. So let's go ahead and put $3,000 there. And again, these are just random numbers I'm going to put in just so you can see the difference being affected. Obviously, you're going to want to put whatever the client brings in and it has receipts for. So here for repairs, we're going to put $5,000 in repairs, supplies, $10,000 in supplies. And you can see as I'm updating the numbers here, the amount owed is being reduced. The reason for that is because now the expenses are being subtracted from the $60,000. So it's technically his only net profits is the 42,000. So it's not taxing him all on the 60,000 anymore. It's taxing him on his net profit now because of the expenses. So as you add expenses, it's going to reduce. And same thing for if they use their home for like the office, you can put that in there as well. Just keep in mind, if you do the 8829, you're either going to use the full form. So you're going to use this form here, or you're going to use the short form. You're not going to use both. So you'll use one or the other. Okay, so once that's done, we go ahead and click OK. And we can see here that it has gone down from 15,000 to 9,000. We'll go into due diligence again. We'll go ahead and clear up any of these things here. So the month, year business was started. You'll put in the year 20. Okay, doesn't maintain, yes. So taxpayer, business license, and you click nothing's missing, no. And then once you take care of that, you see it drop down a bit more and the due diligence is now gone. Any credits like QPI that was applicable to that will show up there as, a deduction basically. So the deduction is 7,000. So that's why it's showing that there. So once that's gone, it fixes that issue. Okay. So let's go ahead and click here. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at what we're going to do next here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the e-file screen, which is the next screen. So once you got all that done, your tax return is finished at this point. And the next point is to file it off. So again, one of the things you have to do is the preview 8879. Okay, so once you have that done, go ahead and pop up on your screen. Unfortunately, like I said, you don't see it because I have it on a different screen, so it's not showing up. It does show the demo bank information there, and you have your routing and your transit number, so you can double check that off. And then once you're ready to send it out, you can go ahead and click the A2A e-file. It's going to show one last confirmation screen, which is this one. Once you click transmit now, after that, there's no way to get that back. The moment it gets sent off, it goes through us and then goes directly to the rest. There's no intermediate point where we can pull that return off. So even if it was just done within the last minute, unfortunately, the moment you click that transmit, it's off to the IRS. So always make sure that you confirm everything here. You can see here it says the balance due, and there's no direct debit information on this one. So the reason for that is because he owes money, and I put that in there as he's trying to get direct deposit information. So that's why it's doing that. Just got to remove that information from there. Yeah, so balance due. Yep. So again, that's now gone from here. If you're doing a bank app, unfortunately, I don't have an active thing here, so I can't show that. Red for anything you're missing. That information and fill it out. Okay, let's take a quick look. So we have other schedules that tie into, again, besides Schedule C, you have your Schedule E, your rentals. You have your Schedule F or farming income. I know someone asked about that there. Pretty straightforward. You fill those out. Again, anything that's qualified for a credit deduction will show up. You must complete the due diligence, and that will cover that. But at this point, basically, this return is completely done. Once it's e-filed out, you can go ahead and print it, archive the return, and you're done with the return. Okay, so I believe that will be it for me, Catherine, unless someone has any questions they'd like to answer.
I do want to ask you to point out about and maybe I missed it, but the notes, how they go from on each screen, and then also maybe the live preview. Is that an option?
1099 NEC in the correct area. Let's see. on the Schedule C. We can take a look at that right now. Yeah, so 1099, it wasn't any C, and it is going to the correct area for the 1099. And this recording will be on our website. So if you're interested, you can always go back on the website and take a look at that. All right, well, I'll give it back to you, Catherine.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's just me, but I cannot hear you.
Oh,
Might be me.
me.
Give me a second.
Well, we could hear you, so that is really good.
Looks like I lost audio, but good thing I got through it.
We heard you just fine, Louise. So thank you very much. Um, still no, can you still not hear me, Louise?
I can hear you now. Yeah,
You
makes
can.
sense.
Okay. I
Yeah,
did actually want to know if you could show the live preview screen as well as the
yeah,
notes,
yeah. So the notes, we go
how
back
they
here.
compile.
Okay, so we can go back over here to the basic. We go ahead and F4 again, and then we can add a second note here. And then you can add your lower notes. Okay, close. And you can see them, they'll show up here. And then for the live screen, this is very useful if you have a second screen that you can go ahead and face to your client. Basically, you open this up, put it on their side. Let's go back into here. I'm not sure if you can see it though. Can you see the live preview? Because I know I'm locked into the program.
I can see it just fine.
Okay. Yeah, so the live preview, let me see if I can kind of adjust my screen so that you kind of see how it works side to side. So if I were to go into the W2 here, and if I were to, let's say, delete this one here, okay, you can see now that it's updated for him to see. So it went from 96 to 46,000, and any changes you make on here will show over on that side on the preview. So whenever you click OK, it's going to be updating. So you can have this facing your clients, and then while you're working on the return, they're seeing what you're doing. So that's a real cool feature, especially like I said, if you have a secondary screen, it it shows you what they're seeing on there. And I see a question on how to file the state. So when the states are released, you will go ahead and add the state in here. So California, you can see right now it says it's not finished. So, but it will show down here. It will show the balance of it. And when you go to e-file screen, it's going to show California state. It's going to, whenever you preview the 8879, it's going to switch to transmit. So whenever you click A2A e-file, it's going to send both of them out if you have a state included.
Thank you, Luis. That helped quite a bit. For anybody that live preview screen that was showing momentarily, it did not stay through the rest of the demonstration. But in essence, that live preview screen can, like he said, be put on a different monitor, shared with your clients to look at, or if it's something that you just really like seeing, that whole return being as it's being worked on, that's an option as well. And everything that is edited, in the program immediately shows up on that live preview screen. So it's very helpful for that. And you can see on this screen here those notes that he was putting in random places within the return all show up on this summary screen as well. So and they stay with the return. So I think that is it. Luis, you've done an excellent job. Great presentation. Thank you for everybody to be here. This this recording will be have just some minor edits and then put up on our website on the video tutorial screen for anybody to use for their training purposes and to reference back to. Thank you again for being here with us today. We wish you all the best in this new tax season, and we are here for you. And we thank you for being our loyal customers. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Luis. Bye-bye.